So what exactly is my job? Well, the main purpose of it is to increase winter canola acres in Oklahoma and the southern Great Plains. I do that by assisting farmers with canola production. I do that by consulting with them, either on-farm visits, phone calls, emails. Any way you can get a hold of me, I'm glad to answer your questions and walk you through anything you might need to know. A lot of my farm visits earlier at planting time was drill calibration and setting the drill. I think year after year this proves to be very valuable to a lot of farmers, getting that stand established correctly and up and out of the ground evenly. Do a lot of field scouting. Like I said, most of my time I spend out on the road going from field to field, so don't be shy to get me out there. Once we start finding stuff, I give you my kind of recommendations on what to spray, when to spray it. Come harvest, I come out, start staging the crop, seeing when you might need to start swathing or pushing, or when you need to start combining, help you set your swathers and combines. One I've been most involved with is the canola demonstration strips. Basically, we're looking just as a visual. It's not replicated variety trials, but it's 8 different commercial varieties. We put these in 10 different counties across Oklahoma. They're located, one in between Leedy and Putnam at Aledo on the north side of Highway 47. One in Fairview, just 3 or 4 miles east of Fairview. One in O'Keene, it's about 7 miles south and 1 mile west. One east of Perry, about 4 miles east and 2 south. One in Oklahoma City at the new location of Producer Crawford Oil Mill. They have some land out there we put one at. One at Chickasha at the South Central Research Station. One in Duke, which is just west of Altus. One in Lawton at the Lawton Public Schools farm there. One in Cotton County, just southwest of Walters and Cookietown. One in Stevens County, just 3 miles west and 3 miles south of Comanche. So this past season, planting went pretty good, I thought, overall. It's getting better and better every year, I think. A lot of it goes back to getting the soil prepped in a timely manner, getting the conditions set right. No-till guys are starting to get better at controlling or managing the residue. Once again, calibration and getting the drill set, not only pounds per acre average across the field, but individual seed cups, and getting that, slowing that drill down and get the depth evenly so it all emerges fairly evenly, helps out tremendously. It's that depth control. One of the problems we had this past year was trying to plant according to the rain. Some guys were waiting on rain, some guys had a downpour of a few inches, so some guys planted it right before the rainfall and it washed out. Some planted, dusted it in real shallow and hoped for a rainfall. But of course it all starts with the wheat harvest, the previous wheat harvest. In this picture, you can tell every pass that the combine made where it threw the ryegrass out. It's trying to get the combines to distribute that material evenly. Like no-till guys, that's added residue right there. We've seen some problems with that. One of the issues I've seen this year, like I said, we had some downpours. Some guys had soil crusting. Try to plant after rain than before is usually the best option. Attention to planting depth. Like I said, some guys try to dust it in and hope for a rainfall. Some of those got washed out. Some of the ground was real light and fluffy, and they had a deep furrow from the drill, and then flooded in, and they ended up having to seed a few inches down there. This mostly led to a bunch of uneven stands. More than likely you'll see this difference in maturity all the way through harvest. So if you had a field like that, you probably more than likely want to look at a harvesting option of either swathing or pushing or desiccant. Some issues with blade emergence, like I said, either the furrow was filled in or they just didn't get the moisture till late. This seed was in the ground for about 5 weeks before it came up, and it's about the size of a penny, middle of November. Roots weren't but maybe an inch and a quarter long. So those, without that root mass, it's harder and harder to get winter survival. It's one of the issues. Some of it will make it, some of it won't. Like I said, no-till guys are getting better with the residue management. This past year, RMA allowed 30-inch 3-inch row spacing. Some guys like this option because they can use row cleaners on the row crop planters as well as control their planting depth a lot better. The main thing is getting the residue out of the seed furrow. Main problem with no-till, with the residue management, is getting the high leg, which is just the elongation of the hypocotyl, like I'm pointing out here, or the elongation of the crown, which is where my index finger is pointing, that growing point. Some of this earlier planted stuff this year, when it's getting real tall in the fall, like upwards over your knee, that crown starts to elongate. So either instance, you're getting that crown further away and more fluctuations in temperature because it's getting further away from the soil surface to buffer that temperature. Some issues I've seen, like Dr. Peeper said, is low soil pH. Often not a huge problem, but it does impact your yield. A lot of times it comes up, you see the yellowing along the leaf margins and severe upcupping of the leaves. A lot of times it's kind of in pockets where the pH is a little lower. But more than likely it will survive, and once that root starts to get deeper than a few inches, it starts to get into a little higher pH. It usually does okay. Residual sulfonylurea herbicides or ALS herbicides. Seen some fields where more than likely it always comes up, but shortly after it starts to die off. There are certain varieties, SURT, that are out now, which means they're sulfonylurea residual tolerant, not resistance. But if you sprayed an ALS or SU herbicide on your wheat last spring, you can come back with one of those certain varieties and still be okay. Some guys wonder why some of their crop or plants are starting to die down on some of those earlier frosts. Start looking at the plants that are starting to die off earlier. They just didn't crack the hard pan in some of their places, or sometimes it's herbicides. So looking at some of the roots. Had a couple of instances where they wondered why there's a big dead spot. Well, obviously a big lime pile, and it doesn't withstand wet spots almost as much as wheat does, but it'll still drown out. Here's an applicator tracks. I took a picture of November 1st. Used big flotation tires. You can see heat sanders up there in the top left. But basically, you can see at the beginning of the field, he kind of peeled out all through there. And I get the question a lot of times, what kind of applicator do we want or need to use? Obviously, any applicator is better than no applicator. It does hurt the plants. A few weeks later, you can see it, most of it grew back. It's kind of delayed, kind of stressed a little bit, but you still got a crop right there, and it's definitely worth spraying. I kind of prefer the row crop tires myself. And if you use an aerial applicator, especially later in the season, main key is getting the coverage or the gallons put down. I like to at least get 5 gallons out of the airplane if you can, especially on insecticides.